Good morning, everybody. As mentioned, I'm Ned Pyle. I'm a principal program manager in the HAS team. I own SMB, which is great and terrible because I own SMB3, which is great. I own SMB2, which is pretty good. I own SMB1, which is why we're going to have a very fun, positive experience right now talking about what SMB really is. We have this slide deck is you're going to see mostly about. I'm going to unveil a lot of information, talk details about the future. It's not really like a real super technical presentation because if I'm talking about destroying something, there's not much, like let's discuss the nature of the destruction. So what is the horror? So there's like the SMB is the unstoppable monster. There's okay. Or it's pretty awesome ransomware attacks that have come out lately when people open up their firewall ports. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Or it's the fact that SMB seems to just never die, right? It never goes away. It's been around forever. And no matter what, just like Stephen King, SMB1. Okay. You've all seen the evolutionary slides of SMB. We're not going to talk too much about the history. It started in the 80s at its precursor basis with IBM. It moved on to becoming the so-called CIFS, the made-up Microsoft name that was stupid. And SMB1, as we all think of it, is really SMB 1.5, right? There's various versions of Landman and PCNet and all these hilarious garbage protocols that live underneath SMB1's moniker. Sure. You've never seen it? Oh, if you look at the dialects, from Chris. If you look in the dialects, at the list of protocols that come back from the SMB1 negotiate, you'll see NT-Landman. 0.12. That's just a brand, basically, right? The actual SMB1 is a brand. It's not really a protocol. Right. Inside of it, if you go look at our documentation, or if you were to dig into our source code, you would actually see 1.5, 1.4, 1.3. DOS. We'll show you later under tenting. SMB2, without getting too much into the Trivial Pursuit hour here, came around with Vista. It was a reaction to, I think, Dave Cruzy's severe unhappiness with owning SMB1 for all those years. SMB3 came around in Windows 8 and 2012. And we now live here in the perfect world of SMB 3.1.1, which has no flaws. What's that? It's a bubble that's going to blow up. No, it's the sphere of happiness. That's what we refer to that as. So, SMB1 was for before Windows, honestly, as we understand it, before NT. It's everywhere. That's the problem. It's the most ubiquitous of the SMBs. It's the most likely to be supported. It's the most likely to have its usage be universal because you can kind of guarantee that SMB1 is going to work. If somebody does an SMB implementation, they probably at least have SMB1. It is terrible in almost every way. So then, SMB2, it was more of a user-optimized protocol. It did all kinds of, and I'm not going to go into the boring, long details. You all know these very well, right? And then we got to SMB3, which is actually, as Dave likes to point out, SMB 2.2. SMB3 is yet again another example of us using branding over, actual protocol stuff. The marketing group said, well, you've done so much interesting stuff. You shouldn't call it SMB 2.2. That's not that impressive. Call it SMB3. All right. And it added tons of functionality. That was the good part. But it's also why that SMB2, as you understand it as the actual architectural stack of sys files, there is no SMB3.sys. It's really almost the same code. about 15% more, right, Dave? Give or take. All right. It is no longer a user-focused protocol. I mean, it still works great for users, but it's not designed with those people in mind. It's designed for Fabric, RDMA, pushing lots of data, creating block replication channels, making storage spaces direct, place blocks all over the place, doing live migrations of VMs, things that users don't care about, things that often require special hardware. But one thing that is very user-centric about it is it's very, very security focused. SMB2 was as well, but SMB3 and SMB, there are folks probably in here who did some of the fuzzing and testing and stuff of SMB2, the original one. But this one was really focused on very heavily to make sure we close a lot of those classic sort of loopholes of the protocol. And Greg Kramer, who's in the back, took a lot of the point on that. So anything you like or hate, there's Greg Kramer. He's got a beard, and he's not staring at me because he doesn't want anybody to see who he is. Okay. So, if SMB3 security is so great, who cares about SMB1? Why does it matter? It matters because SMB1 allows you to totally desecure the experience of users. We have to check all the protocols. If somebody can sit in the middle and say like, oh, I only do SMB1, then all the rest doesn't matter anymore. And it sits there, besides having its man-in-the-middle issues of, its inability to prove dialect negotiation and things like that sometimes, or its own capabilities can be turned off. It also, from a server side, pretty recently saw some pretty good size attacks from the NSA. I mean, an unknown source. So, SMB1 was deprecated years ago. If you look at the paperwork on TechNet or MSDN, you'll see that we officially said this thing is dead and buried, deprecated 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago now. We made it removable since 2012 R2 and 8.1, so it's just an uninstallable feature. You could just uninstall it, turn it off. I don't mean disable it, but actually have the binaries disappear, no longer load. You could turn it off, just say I don't like SMB1, going all the way back to Vista the whole time. And I don't know if anybody knows what Nano is in here, cares what Nano is, but it was a special mode of Server 2016, and that was the first of the ones we shipped that simply had no SMB1 binaries whatsoever. And probably not the last. So, why are we here? It is all over for SMB1. RS3 is our code name for the fall update of Windows. So sometime this autumn, there will be a release of Windows for the client and for server, and it will no longer have SMB1 installed by default in many cases. We've made these features separate. So in the past, you could uninstall all of SMB1. Well, now you can uninstall the server and the client separately, or just the whole thing all together. On Enterprise Edition and on Server Editions, no more SMB1. It's uninstalled by default, both client and server. You can put it back, but it will not be there by default. We will remove SMB1 server from all home and professional editions, the more consumer-oriented or less enterprise SKUs. If you have SMB1 installed on a home SKU or a pro SKU and you don't appear to use it for some amount of time that we have not yet totally decided on, SMB1 will be uninstalled. So it won't take too long of a vacation. When you come back, it might not work. It's not going to be quite that dumb. We'll actually keep track of like running time, not just temporal time, right? So if you're gone for 2 weeks with your machine turned off, it might not count the same as I was not using it actively for 8 hours a day for 2 weeks, for example. The details to be announced. Why are we doing this weird way? Why not just get rid of it all? Well, because there are so many SMB1 things out there being legitimately used. That's the ecosystem problem. Devices, software, update management of those things, old Windows. Does anybody realize, okay, I'll name some things. You tell me if they use SMB1, yes or no. A bunch of old NASs. Okay, that's easy. A bunch of old printers. A variety of security software that you bought for $1 million. Yes. Your home audio system. Yes. An impossible amount of things you can think of that were brand new and you just bought yesterday. Yes. We'll get around to all the finger pointing and rage later. So why do we do this special weird concoction of server gone but client left? For now, that's the reason. The hope is we have to balance things, right? If I suddenly release a version of Windows that makes 100 million devices stop working, that's a probably conservative number. Not going to be an awesome review for me that year. But if I can make it so that all those ransomware attacks stop, that's not bad. That's a good start. Why would a user on their laptop, for the most part, need to have the SMB1 server running without somebody really directly needing it set up for them for some real purpose? So what we do is, if an attacker can't get to the SMB1 server, we've stopped the entire ingress sort of attack vector of SMB1. And we've still allowed you to connect to all of these legacy or not so legacy things using the client for now. And if you don't have those, we'll turn off SMB1 after a while. So this is our first real uninstall stab. The zero attempt was us making it so you could uninstall it. The first attempt now is for us to actually uninstall things in most cases. And then in some future release, even this will stop being installed by default. And then in some future release after that, this will be gone and it will not be installable from within Windows. So the clock is in fact ticking. It's been 5 years of talking, 4 years of deprecating, another 3 years of Ned just yelling constantly and saying this is coming, and then now. We'll get to the WannaCry thing at the end here. We'll chat about that a little bit. So, what else are we doing? That's one thing. That's one aspect of security. We are also going to disable guest failback. Does anybody here know what guest failback is? A few people. Okay, a few people. It's a wackadoodle behavior that says it's a very like sort of an 80s and 90s sort of user-focused behavior. Oh, your password didn't work? Oh, let's just try guest. Let's see if that works. Oh, it worked. Great. Gosh, I sure hope this server is the one I went to go to, because he just let me in without telling me that my password didn't work, and now we're just exchanging files. It does not tell you, the user. So that's a classic FU to all users right there. Yes, technically we were all great the whole time. We just didn't let you know. So, not that any user would care, right? We actually did this once. Dave and Greg and I did all this stuff, and we turned it on in TP1 or TP2 of Windows or server, and we got so many complaints because all the NASs we kept running into that only used guest, that's all they used. Brand new NASs. We went and bought a whole bunch of them brand new from some store, and they all use guest only. You're like, oh no. So this we're going to stick with on the enterprise side, where hopefully guest has been Windows hasn't had guest turned on in 15, 16, 17 years. But the servers that you're connecting to often do. This will be off by default. You can, again, go back and toggle this back on. We will allow you to finally say, from the client's perspective, regardless of turning off SMB1 or 2 or whatever, these are the dialects I support. So I'm just going to do SMB 3.1.1. And I don't care what the server says he supports. We're only doing that one. not hoping to negotiate up to the highest, but basically setting a floor that says, this is the minimum for us. We added plenty more eventing and messaging to make sure that all this made sense to somebody on the IT side. And we added erroring to the screen, to the user, to say things like, oh, you tried to use SMB1, but SMB1's gone. That's intentional. You should go talk to somebody about that here. It will not work or help us at all. Already had like a bunch of like software developers send us long emails with screenshots of the errors saying, what does this mean? Why does it say SMB1 is gone? So that's just going to be a huge fail, but we'll try. And we added your favorite thing, more Windows telemetry, the thing that you all love so much. You're constantly praising us on the internet about. But what we wanted to see was, as we get pushed further and further along, we've had two kinds of pressure with this, right? For years, a handful of us in the SMB team tried to convince Microsoft we need to stop doing these things. We need to get rid of SMB1. And you get the pressure of, no, compatibility is very important. Now, after WannaCry, it's how come SMB1's not gone yet, and what are you doing about it, and hurry up. So telemetry will help us like guide that conversation of, we turned it off, and then a lot of people turned it back on. So maybe we shouldn't totally yank it out yet. Or maybe nobody turned it back on, and now it's the time to just rip the binaries off. And we can do it per SKU. And the nice thing about clients is, unlike servers, the telemetry is actually usually fairly accurate because most of them have access to the internet. Okay, now what can you do if you have customers or you make these systems and you're trying to figure out what their vulnerability is or what yours is to SMB? We have auditing built in since 2016 and Windows 10. It allows you to turn on auditing of SMB1 specifically and see in a throttled way, so it's not just an endless blow up of events, which clients are connecting using SMB1. There's an additional single event that'll fire that says, oh, you turned off SMB1 and somebody tried to connect, and so you're screwed. You should go turn it back on or figure out who that guy is. But this will tell you the specifics, and your customers the specifics. And this is being backported. It's been backported. It releases in the 6C update, so whatever the next cumulative updates are for next Tuesday. Thank you, Sophie. She owns that patch. So you can take this all the way back to 2012 R2, which gets you a big chunk of customer base now to look at and be able to turn this on and not have to, dig around, because the alternative is not great, right? Especially if you're not dealing with Windows. If you just care about a bunch of SMB1 conversations and Windows is not involved, this won't help you, right? So you can take the backported audit fix if you got Windows. We need you to ask and come tell us if you need to go back further than that. We already agree with you. We just need to hear it officially. Otherwise, you're going to be in a world of network captures. It's pretty easy to see SMB1 traffic on the wire. I mean, it's pretty well understood protocol. So if you just promiscuously capture against switches or routers or against your busiest machines or something and just look for the traffic, you'll see it very easily. Or you can do what I do, which is just turn off SMB1 and see who complains. That's way more accurate than any auditing, trust me. You should have seen what happened at Microsoft when we turned off SMB1 the week after WannaCry. It was so much better than any other progress we'd ever made. 2.5 million machines in a week. Okay. I have a clearinghouse I've put up. Some of you may even be on it, and you're going to be ashamed now, and you should be ashamed. That lists out all of the products that we know require SMB1 that aren't just from us. And we only point to the things where it's publicly documented, so there's no like finger pointing, no we don't, yes you do. I can only point to the actual thing where you say, yes I do. That list is actually probably only about 1% of the vendors as far as accuracy, and a rounding error of the products. But the big guys are on there, you'd see on there. The big, the big security companies and the big hardware manufacturers of storage and stuff. And almost everybody on there has SMB2 in the very latest version of something. So part of the list is not just to say like, oh, you're a bad person, but also to help customers say like, but if you would put this latest update on or run this latest device or do et cetera, you'll be back to using a proper version of SMB. Okay, now, we didn't do all this because of WannaCry, but it really, really did help. WannaCry is probably the best thing to happen to SMB1 removal in its history. WannaCry itself, if you don't know, was a series of ransomware attacks. It was based on a bunch of code that was built by the Equation group and leaked by a group called the Shadow Brokers. That code, in all its various iterations, can be up to several years old. It's not real clear how long some of these things were floating around on the internet, or just not floating around the internet, but just floating around inside of adversarial networks of, enemies of the U.S. government. But the cool thing about this is it finally changed the Microsoft executive direction. Even up until we had just put our foot down for RS3 and said this is the one where we're pulling it out, we were still getting significant pushback. This was one of those like code red, blaster sasser, etc. type moments. And it actually wasn't that big. I mean, it got a lot of press. Very few actual machines out of the entire body were affected. And people started doing the right thing, which is understanding this old protocol and looking at it broadly across the spectrum, right? Somebody did some scanning yesterday or the week before of Shodan and was finding 4.5 million devices connected to the internet with SMB1 port, or, answering, but only 800,000 of them were Windows now. It was almost entirely Linux machines. There's another sort of big thing leaking out there, which is the Samba team got SMB2 running, nearly 10 years ago? Almost 10 years? 8, 9 years ago? And then everybody's still putting old versions of Samba out there. So it's not just a Windows, if you say to yourself, like, well, we're not using Windows, you're not out of the woods on this. And SMB1 itself, you could talk about specific vulnerabilities that allow attack, like the double pulsar attack that lets you get in and do some heap corruption and play around and laterally move. But there are architectural difficulties like the man in the middle pieces that it's not broken. That's just the way it works. So a lot of people here might not use Windows, but you want to explore and understand the vulnerabilities of SMB1 for the whole ecosystem. So the next thing we saw from the vendors was Microsoft says patch your stuff. If you patch your stuff, you're fine. Which is true, except that's a bad chicken shit answer. That is, we don't want to actually update our software, so we'll just put it on Microsoft to make you go patch things. Make sure you are encouraging both patching and upgrading, not just patching, upgrading the protocol and upgrading the operating systems and upgrading the software. I cannot tell you how much Samba 3.0 I have seen digging in on this in the last 2 years. Even though you're at 4.6, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. So, to wake everybody up again, there is, when you don't upgrade, and when you don't patch, don't see endless unpatched servers. Do not go to Shodan and put in port 445. Trust me. And not just Windows. That's my favorite. Okay. Patching is one thing. Upgrading is one thing. Disabling even is one thing. But the ideal scenario for us and the Microsoft guidance is pull out the binaries. remove SMB1, uninstall it, don't put it back. In a Windows world, in a Microsoft world, that means a couple of things. One, on servers, you can use a UI to simply uninstall SMB1. And on the client as well, you yourself right now, probably if you have a Windows machine, probably have SMB1 installed. You can uninstall it right now. You can do it through PowerShell. And like I mentioned before, in a week or so, you'll be able to even pick out individual packages, like I want to uninstall the client, I want to uninstall the server, I want to install the whole damn thing. If you get nothing else out of this, nothing at all, and you didn't appreciate the amazing animations that I put together for you, just write this one down. I can never look at this one again and tell you what it is in my sleep. 2696547. That is the KB article that tells you how to uninstall SMB1 and how to disable it. In many steps, using the registry, using PowerShell, using policy, using the UI, any possible way you could think of, it'll be in there for any OS, for any edition, for any configuration. And we just published a whole group policy ADMX last week that Aaron Margosas' team put together. So if you go to the Microsoft Security Baseline blog, you can just download that, pump it into a domain, and shut off everything. So that's a lot of different angles, right? You definitely want to go with defense in depth. Make sure that you don't rely on, I'm just patching, I'm just updating, I make sure my firewall rules are right. Do all of them, not one of them. 445 is a port that covers all SMB. There is, unless you're Dave Goebel, absolutely no reason for 445 to be open in either direction at your firewall edge. And if you were Dave Goebel and have customers there, you would need it inbound to Azure only or outbound from the company only, hopefully controlled by IP range rules. Inside your company, clients, for the most part, don't need the firewall ports open yet again. The end nodes probably don't need it. Servers might need it. People like to say, oh, how come SMB1's on by default and people can SMB? It's not. That is a myth. SMB1 is not on by default. It is running, it has no firewall ports open, and it cannot be contacted by anyone. No one. And if you open the firewall ports, it then has ACLs that mean that only a person who could theoretically be permitted to authorize it can. There are no shares, just the admin shares. So there are several things you have to turn off to allow users in to get to SMB. And most of the attacks we saw with WannaCry were people turning those off. Obviously, you patch and patch and patch, and everybody has the reasons why they can't patch, but I don't care, patch. Remove SMB1. Don't just disable it, but remove it. And keep your OSs updated. That's less of a Windows thing now. You're not allowed to run Windows XP in any sort of legal fashion except for embedded at this point, and a handful of CSA customers, where that's the last Windows OS that only had SMB1, right? We haven't needed it for 10 years. What? And 2003. XP and 2003 are the same, basically, from our point of view. Since then, we haven't needed it, haven't wanted it, and unless we have some bag of dirt application vendor inside the Microsoft stable, we haven't used it. Yeah. The same. 138, 139, 137, those are not opened either.
What was the question again?
Sorry. The question was, what about the other ports, the NetBIOS datagram ports? And Dave will be happy to tell you all about why NetBIOS is fantastic and why he wants to keep it forever. No? No? You sure?
They're NBT ports. NBT is the protocol. BIOS is an API.
Sure.
Sorry. Trivia.
More trivia from Captain Trivia. the less we talk about NetBIOS and MBT, the better, because that means we're not actually using it anymore.
Actually, it's still there.
Oh, I know, it's still there and we're using it. That's probably the next list of things to start attacking for us to get rid of. And I'll throw wins on that pile. And what else? NTLM, HTTP. No, you don't want to get rid of HTTP? What about non-IPsec, any kind of traffic like that? No? What about IPv4? Throw that in the pile too? Okay. All right. Now, it's an interesting point. In the last 3 months, you would think to yourself, holy damn, SMB is the least secure protocol in the universe. That's because you watch the Twitters. It's actually pretty interesting what has gone on with SMB security over the years. There's been 38 vulnerabilities that we've, admitted to and patched for serve.sys, for SMB1 server, and 10 for the client. I'm just talking about back to Vista timeframe. I don't care about XP, just back to 2008 and Vista. And that's a good size number, about 4 per year. But 20 of them all came at once. 20 of them got fixed in March. So that number actually looks a lot better now, right? That all came from the equation group. And I'm here to tell you, I don't care how hot you think you are, when the NSA focuses on you for a few years straight with unlimited budget and first pick at MIT, your protocol is going down. That's like a pretty good track record. I'm the worst. I bag on SMB1 worse than anybody. I hate it more than any of you do. Trust me. It just ruins my weekends. But it's actually been far safer than we give it credit for. SMB2, in that same time frame, had only 11 and 2 for the client. When I say SMB2, I mean 2 and 3, basically those binaries. I don't know if there's ever actually been an SMB3 specific protocol vulnerability. I think there's not been one. And most of those came back in 2010, 2011, during basically a big push of us wanting to find security vulnerabilities. So, the lesson here is when you spend a lot of effort, like we did, along with people in this room, and some who aren't here, to find these problems up front and make sure they never shipped, it really does work. It really, really does work. A lot of eyes got spent looking at vulnerabilities, finding problems with SMB. It took the NSA to come up with a big toolbox of tricks. The malware authors really didn't do it. The OC folks really didn't do it. It took a state actor. So this really does work. Do that. Anybody in here who sells those services, and I was sitting next to one of them the other day, chat them up. Okay, almost done. Now, some of you are thinking to yourselves, but I need SMB1. I need it not because it can't be updated, but because I love turning off oplocks. My awesome database that I created in 1993 will always corrupt unless I use SMB1 and turn off oplocks, because I am a terrible person. So we have now built this thing. It is now available in flights. You can actually try this out yourself right now. 16.215 flight to disable or otherwise modify the leasing and oplock modes of SMB server. By default, nothing changes, and the full mode means go back to being like normal. There's also a new SMB share here, obviously not just set. Shared lets you do read caching lease, but turns off the write or handle caching. And none means nothing. It acts just like SMB1, so to speak, with oplocks turned off. So your goofy ISAM database will now slowly, petrifyingly, unsafely work forever. And your applications from Miami Vice will continue to work. This is all new to RS3. You should absolutely never use it ever, and if you do, that's why. Please don't offer this as some kind of special tuning advice to customers or tell them about how wonderful this is. This is a Hail Mary pass when they say, look, I can't get rid of SMB1 because of a legitimate application incompatibility where SMB2 cannot be used. And they're right, it can't. If they would update their applications to use proper databases, they could, but they won't. This is their last hope. It's a better alternative than turning off SMB2 and using SMB1. And it works across all protocols. It's a server flag. And it doesn't matter what the client OS is. So if the client is Windows 7 and your server is 2016, you're fine. Okay, so the last gasp. That was all the horrible things about why SMB1 is bad. Why is SMB 3.1.1 good? If you were at Edgar's presentation yesterday, you should already know all this, right? You've got end-to-end encryption, privacy. You get a suite of modern security suites to protect your data. Signing is faster and better. Not as fast as it should be, but better. So your integrity protection's there, CMAC. Dave's going to tell you all the reasons why we're going to add GMAC support for this very soon. He'll be happy to talk about that at Ask the Experts at 12. He's shaking his head. Pre-authentication integrity, which Edgar spoke about at great length yesterday, and UNC hardening, which is more of an OS-specific thing, but it allows you to run guarantees with the client saying, I need to be able to connect to these shares, and I must meet one or more, preferably two or more requirements to guarantee no man in the middle. So I might say, I need it to be at least signed, and it's got to have mutual auth, or we're not connecting anymore. As you can tell from this, and from the dialect knob I mentioned earlier, we're pushing more and more logic into the client to let him decide what security is. Less and less on the server, which was the old way of doing things. If you want to do all of these things, and don't forget you have to have all these slides when we're done, so don't worry about taking pictures if you don't need to. We have an entire article I wrote on how to get rid of SMB1, an entire list of things that still need SMB1, so you don't waste too much energy, or you make sure you go and find a later version that will support you. All the information on SMB, the blog we have for everything that we cover for the last 15 years on storage, Jose's old blog, Edgar's spec team blog that covers all of his really excellent depth analysis and understanding and explanation of how a lot of the security aspects of SMB work. Which just leaves me with this. With that, thank you very much. What kind of questions can I answer right now? Yes.
Please wait for the mic.
Oh, wait for the mic.
That way you don't have to repeat.
Oh, it's terrible. I'm a horrible person.
This is just trivia.
Yes. It's all going to be trivia. It's all going to be trivia, Chris.
So exactly when did NSA tell you that that
When did they come and tell us about the vulnerability?
Yeah, because I
Yes.
think in March 2017 is when you patched it.
Yes.
So
The NSA did not come and tell us about that. Nobody came and told us about it. Or maybe somebody came and told us about it. Or maybe the NSA came and told us about it. Next question.
Questions? Questions?
Trivia? Questions?
Chris?
I've got plenty of trivia.
Okay.
We'll say that for Ask the Trivia Experts at noon.
If there's no more questions during this session, thank you.
Thanks.
That was a great talk.
Thanks, everybody.